can make people do stupid things. Reality TV stars eating a kangaroo anus for $50 is evidence of that. Well, when you're talking about millions, billions, or even trillions of dollars, people start getting downright crazy. Financial conspiracies have dogged some of the world's most famous financial institutions for centuries, and the mysterious tales on our list involve major global banks, government agencies, and some of the most evil dictators the world has ever seen. Want to know who's screwing the people of planet Earth out of their hard-earned cash? Then let's take a look at the top 7 most mysterious financial conspiracies. The Terror Profiteers. If you can estimate when share prices will rise or fall, you'll earn yourself the kind of Wolf of Wall Street lifestyle that involves booze, babes, and dwarf tossing. But obviously, such a system is open to manipulation, especially if you have prior knowledge of a major world event about to occur. And world events don't get much more major than 9/11. Just before September 11th, mysterious agreements were made to quickly sell the stocks of United Airlines and America Airlines, the very planes involved in the Pentagon and World Trade Center attacks. Seems a whole lot of people knew a devastating event would destroy the share price of these airlines, and they did nothing to stop it. One major Wall Street bank secretly provided evidence of criminal wrongdoing linked to the 9/11 attacks to the Securities and Exchange Commission, but to this day, nothing has been done. The LIBOR scandal. The world's biggest banks lend each other money all the time, and they impose certain interest rates to make money from these transactions. The most important of all of these is the LIBOR, the London International Bank lending rate, which impacts trillions of international financial contracts worth over $450 trillion. Now, imagine if someone could manipulate the LIBOR rate for personal gain. Would that be the biggest financial scandal in history? Right? Well, yes, it was. In 2012, major world banks including JP Morgan, Barclays, UBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, and Deutsche Bank were exposed as having worked together to manipulate the LIBOR rate for their own collective profits. Since every financial product from mortgages, store credit, and student loans all rely on the LIBOR rate, that means billions of people worldwide have been defrauded by these major banks acting in cahoots. And they had been doing it since 1991. Thanks, guys. You're a credit to your species, literally. The theory of electronic conspiracy. Believers of the electronic conspiracy theory claim a secret group aims to control the world by forcing humanity to rely on electronic money. They apparently began manipulating the world finances during the Renaissance, when precious metal-based currency was first replaced in Europe by paper notes, eliminating mankind's need for gold and silver trading. This was followed by the creation of virtual money, i.e. credit cards, and the replacement of credit cards later on by online processes such as internet banking. The next stage will see electronic identity cards introduced, and worldwide banks bought and sold so that only a few powerful people own the world's financial institutions. At this point, their power will be consolidated by creating huge worldwide blackouts caused by major world events, meaning the world's population will have no real control over their electronic money, and those in charge will be able to do as they please. Imagine a drug dealer offering you the crack you so desperately require if you're compliant to his requests behind a dumpster. That, in a gross little nutshell, my friends, is the theory of electronic conspiracy. The fraudulent Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is one of those weird institutions which isn't under government control or privately owned. Those with the most influence over the Federal Reserve are the banks, who elect its directors and recommend their governors, so it's not much of a stretch to imagine these people being influenced by those who elected them. It's a case of you scratch my back, I'll help you artificially control the economy. The Federal Reserve has been accused of deliberately miscalculating inflation to reduce government Social Security payments. And that's not even the worst part. There are many credible theories which demonstrate that the Federal Reserve engineered both the Great Depression of the 1930s and the 2008 recession. So if you're watching this video on an iPad made from tuna cans and goat skin because you lost your job in the recession, you know who to blame. The empty vault. If you were asked to name the toughest place to get into, where would you think of? Guessing Emma Watson's undergarments will have you escorted from the room. For the rest of the assembly and attendance, if you mentioned Fort Knox, you'd be correct. Fort Knox is where the U.S. stashes its official gold reserves worth approximately $175 billion. Or is it? Since its creation in 1935, there have been only 3 inspections of the Fort Knox Gold Depository, and the last was in 1974. This lack of regular transparency has led many to wonder if America really holds as much gold as it claims. Fort Knox reportedly holds 2.4% of all the gold ever mined on Earth. But many believe this gold was spent a long time ago, and the US is covering this up to suppress gold prices. One theory claims that most of the gold bars at Fort Knox have been drilled out and replaced with tungsten. Many countries store their national gold reserves in Fort Knox, and in 2009, China complained after receiving a shipment of US gold which turned out to be, yeah, you guessed it, tungsten. The BCCI scandal. The Bank of Credit and Commerce International was, at its peak, the seventh largest private bank in the world with assets of over $20 billion in operations in 78 different countries. But by the 1980s, it became clear that they'd been operating through pretty lax regulations. So much so, these guys made Enron look like charitable relief workers in comparison. BCCI's rap sheet includes bribing officials and world leaders, facilitating tax evasion, illegal purchases of real estate, the support of arms trafficking, prostitution, the sale of nuclear weaponry, and of course defrauding customers out of nearly $15 billion. Trust us, you wouldn't want to owe money to these jerks, especially considering who some of their clients were. The BCCI laundered money for Saddam Hussein, the Colombian cartel, and the Pakistani Mujahideen, including, most certainly, Osama bin Laden. It is also rumored that before being brought down by investigations in 1991, the BCCI had close involvement with our very own CIA.